Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Today is Friday, the 16th. Today, we do have some consumer sentiment that is going to be at 10 a.m. Currently, every single dip just getting bought up in the overall markets. We'll go over the key levels we talked about yesterday, being that Tuesday's highs. Once we had that nice reclaim of your Tuesday's highs, that was later into the session. We ended up having a nice push up and towards the highs that we created on Wednesday. And then we'll kind of talk about what we're looking at coming into this morning. Good morning. What's up, Papa? What's up, Benjamin, Daniel, JT? What's up, Ryan, Martin, Audrey, Monty, Josh? Good morning, Darth. What's up, Infinite, Dominic, Zena? What's up, Robert, K, Katrina, Wayne, EK, Benjamin, Andreas? What's up, Paul, KO, Seamus, Carol? I always pronounce that wrong. I'm curious how you pronounce that. What's up, Bob? What's up, Jorge, Katrina, Gabriella, Lucas, Sam, Telmo? What's up, Rick, Robert? Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's kind of go over exactly what I'm looking for coming into this morning. And then we'll go over some of the charts and some of my top watches coming into today. So first things first, let's start off on the ES. So let's go into the 1 hour time frame. Coming into yesterday, the key levels that we had marked out was basically your 5896. So for the ES, the key level was basically your previous day lows. It was also this key pivot level as well. This is the level we had to see reclaim if we wanted to see a push back up and towards your previous day high. So coming into yesterday, this was a key level that we had marked out. As you can see, multiple touches on the ES, which is your 5896. You can see all these wicks that we have created. Once we're able to close above your 5896, this is the sign that most likely price is going to push back up and towards your previous day highs, which was your Wednesday's highs and your Tuesday's highs here as well. So once we broke above this level, basically went from this zone all the way back up and towards this zone right here. So kind of nice zones that we have marked out yesterday. We can now actually mark out this level here as well. Drag this one over. As you can see, we basically went from zone to zone. So once we were able to break above this 5896, we end up having a nice push up and towards your this week's highs, which was that 5920. If you go into the SPY chart, similar thing, the key levels that we have marked out on the SPY was our 586. As you can see right here, this is basically your previous day lows. Multiple touches. Once we're able to break above this key pivot level, which was your 586.10, we end up having this nice push up and towards your Tuesday's highs along with your Wednesday's high here as well, which is your 589. And you can see so far now we broke above your Tuesday's highs. We also broke above your Wednesday's highs. Right now, we're basically using this as a retest for this continued push back towards the upside here on the overall market. So for the SPY now, I'm going to have to go on to the daily time frame to mark out levels. In this case, the levels that we do have marked out, let me adjust for dividends. So in this case, the key levels I have marked out here on this SPY is going to be all the way back up and towards your 595. We can also mark out this level here as well, which is just going to be this daily body 594. We can also mark out a couple other key levels here as well, which is now just going to be this 592. So for SPY, these are the key levels I have. We have your previous day highs marked out, which is going to be this 590, and now we're going to have our 592, our 594, and then our 595 towards the upside. So those are the levels I have marked out for the SPY coming into today. At least for today, we're above your previous day highs on the SPY. What I'd like to see now is just the reaction that we have off of your 590.80. As long as you can maintain your 590, I do expect price to push back towards the upside. It's also a Friday today. So this is a very bullish week. Most likely we are going to close at the very high. So Friday bullish. The only thing that could potentially move this lower is going to be consumer sentiment. So the key levels are 590.98. We'd like to see maintain for continued pushback towards the upside here on the overall markets. If we go on to the NQ chart, key levels that we have for the NQ, similar thing was our, let me actually get rid of this. was our Tuesday's highs. So coming into yesterday, the key level for me was our Tuesday's highs. This was a pivot point. You can see a pivot point here on Wednesday. And then coming to yesterday, you can see we had multiple touches off your Tuesday's highs. Once we're able to get above your Tuesday's highs, similar thing to the ES, we expected this nice pushback towards the upside. So after we got above your Tuesday's highs, had a nice push higher, right in towards your Wednesday's highs. And now you can see currently we're kind of just bouncing off this Tuesday's highs pivot point. So for the Qs, coming into today, if I go onto the NQ chart, let's look at this daily chart so far. After we ended up having this gap over the weekend, you can see how bullish we are on the overall markets. Anytime you've been trying to short the past really a couple weeks now, it's going to be very difficult, right? We are fairly overextended on the daily time frame, but this doesn't mean we could just go short looking for, right, a pushback towards the downside. So the key levels for the NQ, let me actually just mark out some brand new levels, is now going to be this 21,594, which is this daily pivot high all the way back from March. And we also have this body marked out here as well. So go back onto the lower time frames on NQ. What we like to see now hold is just going to be this key pivot high, right? Higher lows be built. As long as we maintain this 21,455, we like to see this push up and towards your previous day highs and potentially your 21,594 here on the NQ. If we go onto the QQQ chart, it looks a little bit better in this case. Let's go into the daily time frame. We actually just broke above a couple key pivot levels here. The next level is really just going to be back up and towards that all-time highs, but key levels is going to be this 528. We can now actually mark out a couple other key levels here as well, which is going to be this 521. So for the QQQ, coming into today, the key levels that I have marked out is going to be this 518. And we also had your 517 here as well. So coming to yesterday, what we had was your Tuesday's high. So your Tuesday highs was key. I talked about this one. You can see we have multiple touches here on Wednesday. And then yesterday, right, we were unable to get above that 517 coming to market open. But the higher time frames, market structure was still intact. So once we're able to get above this 517, right, we end up having this nice trade up and towards really your 518 fairly quick. So you can see once we finally had that candle closure, right, this is where I was looking for a long towards the upside. It happened later into the session. So you can see multiple touches, right? Wicks off your Tuesday's highs. But once we finally had that candle close, this is when I was interested for a push up and towards your previous high that we created, or 518. And that's when we end up having that nice move. So anything right off the start would have been a little bit more difficult. But as soon as we broke above that 517, which is your Tuesday's highs, nice push right up and towards the upside above your 519, and then we end up having a push up and towards this 521. Similar with the SPY, once we're able to break back above, in this case was our 586. Our 586 was key, at least on the higher time frames. Once we're able to basically break above this key level that we have marked out, right, that's when we had that nice push all the way up in towards that 589. And as you can see, the key levels for at least the SPY, once we broke above basically your 15-minute opening range consolidation, broke above, we kind of had that base nice push up and towards that 589. So for the Qs coming into today, if I go back onto the 15-minute time frame, the key levels that I'm going to have marked out, number one is going to be your Wednesday's highs, or 518.92. So our 518.92, and then we're now going to also have marked out your previous day highs here as well, which is our 521. So for the QQQ, number one thing, right, maintain above your 518 for this continued push back up and towards the upside, or now it's going to be the break above your previous day highs, hold above your previous day highs for this continued push back towards the upside. So for the Qs, the key levels we can have marked out is now just going to be this 521. We can drag this over. So these are the key levels we're going to keep an eye out for the Qs coming into today, 518, and then we're also going to mark out your 521. So if we can get above your 521 along with the SPY here as well, we can see this push back higher. So for the SPY so far, we're actually above its previous day highs. This one's leading the market so far. Compared to the Qs, at least today, this morning, right? Overall, this week, the Qs has been the leader back towards the upside, and the SPY has been lagging behind. But currently today, the key levels for the SPY is going to be your previous day's highs. So that's what I have on the major indices coming to market open. As I mentioned, every dip, you just like to look for dips to get bought up. As long as the market structure is still intact, That's what you're going to be doing. At least for today, the SPY, the dip is going to be down in towards your 590 Qs, right? The key level is going to be this 518 or the break above your previous day highs. Let's go on to a few tech names here. Number one, Tesla. This one, a lot of these ones are just going to continue higher. If we're looking at this from the daily time frame, let's get rid of this. For Tesla, key levels that we like to see maintain above, right? 324. The next levels is going to be all the way back up and towards your 380 here on Tesla. So if we go back onto the 1 hour time frame, the key levels that we have marked out today is going to be this 342. So for Tesla, this one very much still intact. This is basically your Monday's price action, Tuesday, nice push higher. So far, we end up holding this key level that we talked about yesterday, which was our Tuesday's highs. So as you can see here on the 15-minute time frame, the Tuesday's highs was holding. Also coincides with your Wednesday's lows. Nice hold yesterday off our 337. Now what I like to see on Tesla is it maintain above this 342. So for Tesla, I like to see it maintain above this 342 for this push up in towards. Now it's going to be this 350 and above, right? So we have a key cycle level being that 350. Tesla still looks very good. Higher time frames, right? Just higher lows are being built. This one, now you're actually above your previous day highs here as well. What I like to see on Tesla is this push coming to market open above your, now it's going to be this Wednesday's highs. And the next levels above being that 354. So Tesla looks really good on the higher time frames. Key levels now you can have marked out is just going to be your previous day highs. You like to see any sort of dip down in towards your 346 for a push up in towards. Now it's going to be this 350 and above here on Tesla. So that's the levels I have marked out today. Next level is 354, 362 for NVIDIA. This one, kind of similar thing, higher time frames, just very much bullish towards the upside. Every dip has just gone bought up on this name here as well. Key levels is now I'm going to have marked out your previous day highs. We also have marked out here, it's your 134. So for NVIDIA, coming to yesterday, you can see just higher lows are being built here on NVIDIA. Now what we like to see is just a break above your 136 for this continued pushback towards the upside here on the overall markets. If you look at this from a daily time frame, right, higher time frame, very nice break once we ended up getting back above this 115. The next level is going to be all the way back up and towards your 140 and eventually this all-time highs level. So for NVIDIA, key levels today that we have marked out, we can now mark out your daily key pivot high, 138.60s. We can now mark out this one here as well, which basically also coincides with this 142. So if I go back onto the lower time frames here for NVIDIA, if we can break and hold above your previous day highs, also your high that we created in the after hours on Thursday, we can see this nice hold and push up in towards this 138.60 here on NVIDIA. So that's what we're going to have marked out today. As for Apple, this one still kind of lagging behind on the overall market. The higher time frames is still very much intact, but this one you like to see break towards the highs as long as it maintains right these higher lows on the overall markets. The key level and what I like to see personally on Apple is this break up in towards this this 214. This kind of your flat top here. As long as it maintains right higher lows, you like to see this continue back up in towards that 214 here on Apple. So the key levels, you have your 211, you also have marked out here your 214 on this name. Let's go into Microsoft. Key levels on this one, higher lows are also being built, right? Every single dip just gone bought up on this name. Let me actually just get rid of this. Key levels is our 449. Now we also have our 445 here marked out. And now you can also, let's just actually go into the daily time frame. Right, so key levels is our 454, and you can see the next one is going to be this all-time high. So for Microsoft, we end up gravitating up and towards this 454, which is a key level. The next level is going to be all the way back up and towards that all-time highs being that 464 here. So for Microsoft, the key levels you're going to have marked out is now just going to be your 454. And now you're just going to have marked out here as well, which is your Tuesday's highs, your 450 key cycle level here as well. So for Microsoft, every dip so far just kind of getting bought up. What we like to see break above your 454 for this push back up and towards the highs. If you reject off your 454, we're just going to come back inside of the range that we created, potentially back down in towards that Tuesday's highs here for Microsoft. So key levels 454 on this name. As for Google, this is one of my favorite names for kind of this pushback higher. The theme, whenever you have these bad news, right, beaten down, these ones are like really good dips to look for. So for Google, higher time frames, we talked about at least this one on the weekly time frame perspective. This is like a super solid ad here on Google. I talked about this a few weeks ago, but basically super solid break and retest. I like to see this one push back up and towards that all-time highs. If we go back onto the daily time frame now, key levels that we're gonna have marked out. Let's actually just go into the 1 hour time frame. The key levels for Google for me is going to be this earnings high. So we had this earnings high all the way back up and towards this 171. If we can maintain above its 167, I like to see this push up and towards that 171. So for Google today, that's what I talked about yesterday, kind of that same thesis. I like to see a hold of this 167. Right off the bat, we actually got underneath this 167. Price just continued lower, but now we're back above this 167. I'd like to see it as long as it maintains above your 167. I personally like to see it above your previous day highs and hold now for this continued push. Now it's going to be back up and towards this 171, that earnings high. So that's your key level here for Google. It's going to be this earnings high 171. We can now also mark out your high that we created on Wednesday for this continued push back up and towards that area. For Meta, this one, I think it had news later into the day yesterday. That's kind of what dropped the overall markets. But for Meta, this one, higher time frames, still very much intact. Key levels that you like to see hold today is going to be your Monday's high. So for Meta, this one broke underneath your previous day lows. Right now, it's just coming back down in towards your Monday's highs. What I'd like to see is a hold of your 640 for this potential move back up in towards. It's going to be your 650. If we do see some more downside, it's going to be underneath this 640, and potentially we could see a move down in towards this 633 here on Meta. So key levels you're going to keep an eye out on is going to be your Monday's high here for Meta. As for a few other names, Amazon, this one's showing a little bit more weakness compared to the rest of the market. Key levels, your Monday's lows so far underneath your Monday's lows. What we like to see kind of the reclaim back above your 206 for this pushback towards your 208 and above here. But for Amazon, we're going to keep an eye out on your Monday's lows. If we reject off this level, we can see a push back down in towards your previous day lows. I'd much rather see the reclaim based off of the higher timeframes here on Amazon. As for AMD, this is one of my main ones coming into this morning. So yesterday we actually broke underneath this 116. That was my higher time frame key pivot point. If you mark it down in towards the bodies, we actually had another key level here as well, which basically held. So I would like to see a hold of this key pivot point, which was this 116. It just came back down into the bodies, which is your 115. Now we actually reclaim back above this 115 key area. So I'm still very much bullish here on AMD. Key levels is going to be still this 116. So now with this reclaim back above this key level, I'd like to see, right, this continue push back up and towards your 120 and above here on AMD. Key levels we can have marked out today is going to be your previous day highs. So you can mark out this. What I like to see hold is one of two levels. I like to see your 117, which is your previous day highs for this continued push back up and towards your 120, or for price to come all the way back down in towards your 116 for this push back towards the upside here as well. They're fairly similar levels, similar thesis here as well. We can just have these ones marked out. But AMD, I like to see a push back up and towards now. It's going to be this 120. As for Netflix, nice push towards all-time highs. This one, once we got back above your 1160, we end up having this nice push towards the upside. You can see we had multiple touches, one touch, two touch, three touch. Once we're able to get above this 1160, nice push towards the upside here on Netflix. You can see broke above, kind of based, and then we end up having this nice push higher. So for Netflix, whenever you are at all-time highs, every dip you like to see get bought up and just continue back towards the upside. So key levels in this case, your 11160s, and we also have your 1187 here on Netflix. Okay, at least coming into this morning, right? Consumer sentiment, but keep an eye out on your 52150s here for the Qs. SPY, it's going to be all the way back down towards your previous day highs in this 592. Tesla looks really good for this nice push higher, right? If we're looking at this from a 15-minute time frame perspective, right? Monday's price action, right? Every dip got bought up. Now we're holding key levels or Tuesday's highs. We can see a nice push into Friday's close here, up above your previous, Wednesday's highs, and then potentially higher, being that 354 here on Tesla. The key level in this case is going to be your previous day highs. Preferably, you like to see a dip down in towards your 346 for a push higher, or you're going to be looking for, right, the break above your Wednesday's highs for this push, this retest off your Wednesday's highs for this push towards the upside here. So that's what we have for Tesla. That's going to be one of my main watches. Nvidia, similar thing. We're going to keep an eye on this one. Every dip so far just got bought up. Key levels is going to be this 136. Apple, we like to see above. It's now going to be just your previous day highs, your 113. Not too much to say on that name. As for Google, I do like Google as well, above your 168. And then AMD, it's going to be above your previous day high. So we have a couple names that we can be looking for coming into today. We also do have consumer sentiment, as I mentioned. That's going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. If you guys do have any charts, you guys can drop them in the chat here now as well. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like. And let's see. Good morning. What's up, everyone? SMCI, go over that one. In a bearish condition, price broke and retest key level, but didn't get a confirmation bearish candle, which didn't validate the first entry. Then we get a reclaim. So will that still be a good entry? In a bearish condition, price broke and retested a key area, but didn't get a confirmation bearish candle, which didn't get validated the first entry. If we get the reclaim, yeah, that would be the 84% rule. So towards the downside, right? Currently, the higher time frames is bullish, so it's the same thing towards the upside. If the first, let's say you get above a key level, it doesn't retest, but it comes back down, but it reclaims your key level, then that is basically an 84% rule, or it could be a potential reclaim where you could be looking for a continuation. A lot of times the reclaims are sometimes better trades than the actual retest themselves, because once the break and retest fails, that technically is a failed breakdown, and then price reclaims the key level, and then we have continuation towards the upside. All right, let me go over some tickers. Palantir. So Palantir, higher time frames, right? We're well above all-time highs. We're now just kind of basing above this all-time highs level. Palantir, for me, this one's looking good, right? We're kind of consolidating here above this number one, your previous all-time highs level, your 125. Now we're basing right above this earnings key high here as well. For Palantir, you kind of have this mini flat top, right? Besides this wick right here, what you like to see base above your 130 for this continued push back towards the upside here. As long as you maintain above your 125, we like to see Palantir break above, hold above your 130 for this continued push back towards the upside. This one looks really good. As for HIMS, this one, all-time highs is in play. HIMS pulled back down and towards this daily down close candle at 55. This one's going to move back up and towards all-time highs. These are the dips that you want to buy. So for HIMS, key levels was this level that we have marked out. We had our 55. Our 55 was our Monday's high, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe this was your last week's high. This was a key level here for HIMS that we end up hitting nicely off of our daily time frame. Now we're reclaiming back above your 58. We like to see a hold of your 58 for a push back up and towards your 64 here and above. So for HIMS, 54 40s, we have your 58 50s, and now back up and towards your 64 here on this name. Let me go over gold. At least for gold, this one, higher time frames, we wanted to see reclaim the key level, which was this right here. So for gold, coming to yesterday, the key levels that we like to see reclaim, we actually had a few key levels. Number one, which was our 320. I wanted to see gold kind of hold this general area for this continued push back towards the highs. This was what I wanted to see on gold. Unfortunately, this one didn't really play out, broke back underneath here. Now for gold, this one's consolidating a little bit more. So lower highs are just being established now. This one's consolidating a little bit more. We're not really in this clear higher time frame trend. At least on daily time frame, trend is still intact. At least on the lower time frames, we broke structure, but this was kind of the best move we had towards the upside. Now we're kind of slowing down just a little bit here for on the 1 hour time frame. You can see the 1 hour time frame is actually bearish, daily time frame is bullish. This one's starting to slow down just a little bit. But the key level in this case is our 3,200. You can see, right, end up using this as support. once we got above, tried using it once again, but got back underneath. Now it's going to be just based off of this key level. If we maintain underneath your 3200, we can expect continuation lower, reclaim. We can see this push back up and towards the highs here. Good morning. How are you? Let's see. Good morning, IWM. As for IWM, this one on this week's price action, at least so far, key levels you're just going to mark out is your Monday's lows. This is the area that I gravitated towards yesterday. Now you can also mark out your Monday's highs. So Monday's highs is in play. And we actually had your Monday's lows here as well. So for IWM, now we're gravitating towards your Monday's highs, Tuesday's highs here as well. What we like to see break above your 209 for this continued push back up and towards your 211 here on IWM. If we break back underneath, we're just going to come back towards your previous day high. So we like to see the break and hold above your 209 here on IWM. As for Hood, this one very much intact. This one's still kind of like HIMS. You can expect this one to gravitate towards all-time highs fairly soon. Probably next week or the week after, we like to see this push back up and towards all-time highs. For Hood, the key levels that we have marked out in this case, number one I had was your 5930. This was your Monday's highs. You can see right off the bat, you end up having a little bit of a bigger push lower. Once we're able to reclaim back above this level, nice push higher. Now for Hood, the key levels that we like to see it above is your 6180s. So we can have marked out your previous day highs. We can have marked out your 6180s. If we can get back above this level, we can see this nice push back up and towards your Mondays and this is your Tuesdays and Wednesdays highs, which is going to be your 6340 here for Hood. Either way, if you're on the daily time frame, this is really the chart that you want to be on, is on the daily time frame. This one is just going to gravitate back up and towards this all-time highs level, being that 66 on the higher time frame. So this is what you have for Hood. As for INTC, Intel, key levels that we have on this name is going to be, let me actually get rid of a couple levels here. At least for Intel, the key levels I still have marked out really just this daily key pivot level or 20. We also have this daily gap, which we never end up filling. This one's just consolidating a little bit more here now above this key pivot high, which is just your earnings key pivot point with tariffs here as well. So for this one, we're just kind of in this general area 20. And then what we like to see it above is really this 2390. So for INTC, we like to see number one hold of this 20 key psych. If you can hold this psych level, you can see the slow mover back up and towards the highs. This one just ended up having a pretty big push the other day towards the downside. We'd like to see it now hold above number one, your 2090, and then we also like to see it above this key level, which is your 2150. So this is the level you like to see maintain for any sort of continued push higher. If we break back underneath your 2150, we're just going to see this push back down and towards your 21 key psych on this name. Let me go over ARM. ARM's looking really good on the higher time frames here as well. If we're looking at this without the drawings here, ARM higher time frames kind of just fill this daily gap. But at least on the higher time frames wise, once we're able to reclaim back above this 95, this one for me looks good for a potential push back up and towards the highs that we created. So for for ARM key levels we have marked out is our 122. This is our previous level support turned into resistance. As you can see, multiple touches. Once we got back above this level, now we like to see ARM really push back towards the highs here. So for the higher time frames, we're now above key levels. ARM, you can see every dip gone bought up. We're above that earnings high here as well coming into this week. Now what we like to see is just all dips get bought up for a continued pushback towards the highs. So for today, key levels you're going to have marked out is going to be your previous day highs. We can also have marked out this level, which we used yesterday, 129, and now we can also have marked out it's going to be your 135. So for ARM, higher lows being built, we like to see a break above your previous day highs hold for this continued push back towards the upside. Okay, let me go over some more tickers here as well. I talked about this one yesterday. Key levels in this case is just going to be your all-time highs. This one had earnings. We talked about this one. Most likely just going to have like an IV kind of crushed to both sides here. Key levels is your 64. So potentially you could be looking for a day 2 earnings play. So day number 1, you're inside of the range, at least this earnings range that we created. Potentially now you can see this day 2 earnings play back up and towards your previous day highs and this earnings high here as well. For this trade, what you like to see, number 1, the key level is going to be your high that we created here on the day before earnings, which is your 68.49. So if you can get above this level, potentially you can see an opening play right off the bat for a push up in towards your previous day highs in your 75. This is something you could be looking for. Just because we're at all-time highs, we just had earnings, day 1 consolidation. A lot of these moves have been happening on day number 2. So above your 68.49, you can see this push back up and towards your previous day highs and above. Okay, USD, let's see, do you trade? I take a trade before 6. Depends what time frame. I'm not sure what time frame you're in. Are you using level 2? Personally, I do not. UNH, this one's fairly beaten down. Let me take a look at UNH. So this one's beaten down. This one's more based off news, so it doesn't really have to do with technicals. Based off news, there's a news report the other day. Now you can see really big push towards the downside. I'm not the biggest in favor of kind of buying these dips, right? Basically buying like a dead cat bounce. This one, there's a lot more that has to go into kind of reading the tape, looking at key levels, sentiment here as well. But this one, now you're actually back above your previous day highs, which is your 276. If you do want to see any sort of continuation, right, 276 is going to be key. You can see also hit it in the pre-market. Hold above your 276 for this push back up and towards just kind of the pre-market levels we had yesterday. So those are levels we have marked out, just 276 here today. I saw a gap on the Qs is something we need to look out for today. Yeah, the key levels is going to be SPY plus the Qs right at your 521. So we have a gap right in towards your previous day highs. So we have to be careful just because we're gapping up right in towards this key general area of kind of the rejection back down in towards your 519. If you can get above your previous day highs and hold, then potentially you can see a little bit more continuation here on the overall market. Okay, let me go over some more. Or reclaim is enough for entry. Yes. When applying 84% rule and reclaim, do you need to see a retest? No, you don't need to see a retest. It's just a reclaim. Once it breaks back above the key level, you could be looking for a continuation. You don't need to see the retest on the reclaim because the best reclaims or the best trades that happen when it doesn't have a retest and it just reclaims and you have a nice push higher. When it comes back to retest, it's a little bit slower. Usually don't like that, but you can still see that retest depending on what time frame you're on. But if you're on the lower time frames, once you break above your key level and you reclaim your key level, you just like to see price gravitate up and towards high of day and your targets above. Reddit. I don't understand some of the key levels. I understand pre-markets, high and lows. Previous day, you mentioned price to mark out. How do you get these swing high and low areas? They're just all old highs, old lows. If you watch my last video, Wayne, I think you'll get a better understanding of it. But it's just all old highs, old lows, and the ones that have multiple touches. So let's say if I'm marking out Reddit right now, right? The key levels, if I was to remove all these drawings here, number 1, I would just mark out something with multiple touches. So something like this is your gap. You're obviously going to be looking at this gap because this is a very key level once we had this gap up. You can see so far, I just marked out this gap and you can see coincided with this 107, right? Multiple touches. So this is now kind of your inverse head and shoulders that we've been looking for on Reddit, just based off of this one key level. You can adjust it. Let's say we adjust it up into this 105, just so we have multiple touches. Now we go back onto now we can mark out a couple more key levels. So far, if I mark out this daily key pivot, there's also another gap here. This one's a bigger level, so if you go into lower time frames, it might not be used as much, but this is also a daily key pivot high. You can see here, right, you had earnings kind of right here, and then you can see yesterday traded up in towards this general area here as well. So these are all the daily levels that we have marked out. Sometimes the daily levels aren't as useful when you're day trading, but these ones seem to be fairly useful. They're fairly small here as well, 106. You also have your 128. Now we can mark out, right, intraday levels that we can use, right? You can mark these out as, let's say, right, your daily gap. So in this one, let's say your bottom, right, you can just mark out this, the right, daily gap on the higher time frames. You can mark out your 128, also another daily gap, basically kind of coincide with this earnings key pivot high here as well. Now, if I was marking out intraday levels for this week, it would basically be the past 3 to 5 sessions. So in this case, I would just be looking at Monday, right? You could be looking at this week's price action. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? For marking out this week's price action, let's say we look for one with multiple touches. In this case, I'm probably going to use your last week's Friday's high, just because there's more touches here instead of this Monday's highs. It also kind of coincides with your yesterday's price action. So you can see last Friday's pivot point. Monday, you have a couple touches here, right? Tuesday, you have a couple touches here. Yesterday came back down and towards your 113. So this is basically the exact level I have marked out, 113 here on Reddit. You can also mark out a couple other key levels, potentially kind of your Tuesday's highs, which, as you can see, coincides with your Monday's pre-market. Multiple touches here on Wednesday. Once we reclaim this key area, nice push back up and towards the high. So 117's key. And then yesterday, you can see right here, once we got underneath your 117, price ended just pushing back towards the downside. So really, these are the exact levels I have marked out on Reddit. Just fairly quickly, 117, 113. In between here, you're just going to be looking for kind of this range, break above your 117, potential move back towards the upside. Hold underneath your 117, you can see it push back down towards your 113. If you want to see some more downside, really it's going to be underneath this 113 key pivot point. So as you can see, they're just all old highs, old lows, just in combination with other key levels here as well. And I could mark that up fairly quickly. Okay. Where should I invest? How long should I hold? As my previous day was not that bullish, if you're investing, you don't have to worry about it on a day-to-day basis. If you're day trading or swing trading, similar thing. But if you're investing, you just buy and hold. How would you go long on Google? Yeah, I have some Google. I picked some up, at least some shares on this dip. Now for Google, really this one looks fairly bullish. If you're just looking at this on the weekly time frame, as I mentioned, right? Key levels, right? Any dips that you buy, this one I expect to slowly push back up and towards this all-time highs. But key level, nice hold to this 148. You want to buy at close to this 148 as possible. This one, as I mentioned, is going to slowly push back towards the highs. Okay, let me go over a few more tickers here, and then we can call it a day here. Can we look at SPY and Qs? Yeah, I'll go over that once again. Are you going to wait for consumer sentiment? Yeah, today at least I'm going to wait for consumer sentiment. That's a big one. Unless I find like a low risk entry beforehand, but most likely you're going to wait for consumer sentiment. If SPY dips down and towards your previous day highs, then this would be kind of your best opportunity. Your 590.98. Tesla, this one I like to see hold above your 346 here for this pushback towards the upside. Okay, let me scroll down and then I'll call it. Okay. Let's see. How far do you look? How far back do you hold previous day highs and lows on the chart? As long as they're relevant, right? If they're relevant, then you can use, it doesn't matter about the time, but you want to mark out whatever is relevant on your chart, preferably the past 3 to 5 days. If you can't use the past 3 to 5 days, then you have to go into the higher time frames. Okay. Let me go on to my game plan coming to today, and then I will call it a session. So coming to today, similar thing, 590s, previous day highs here on the SPY. That's your key point of interest for the QQQ. The key levels in this case is just going to be your 519. And then we're also going to mark out here your 521. So far you can see a little bit of rejections off your previous day highs. For any sort of long position, you like to see a hold of your 519, or now it's going to be the break back above, reclaim for this pushback towards the highs. So that's what we have for the Qs coming to today. One of my top watches, as I mentioned, is going to be Tesla. Tesla above your previous day highs for continuation towards your now it's going to be this Wednesday's high. So 346, I'd like to see hold for continuation. If it consolidates, gets back underneath, then we could still be looking for the reclaim back above your 346. As for NVIDIA, it's going to be a hold above your previous day highs. Apple, you like to see just above now This one's consolidating. You like to see a hold of this 111. As for Google, this one also my favorite watch here as well. It's going to be a hold above your 168 for this push up in towards your 171. As for AMD, I like to see a hold of your previous day high. So coming into today, we're going to keep an eye on the major indices. We do have consumer sentiment, which is most likely what we're going to be waiting for. But Tesla above your previous day highs, Nvidia hold above your previous day highs. We like Google here as well, hold above this 168, and then AMD hold above this 117. So that's the levels that I have for AMD. Also other names, Palantir, if you get above 130, Hood, and all the rest of the names, you just like to see daily time frame. These ones I expect to set up nicely coming to next week for a push towards all-time highs. So those are the levels I have marked out coming into today. All right, that's going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open here. If you guys did enjoy that, appreciate it if you guys drop me a like and sub. We're almost at 100K, which is super exciting. If you guys haven't joined the watch list, that is in the description below. With that being said, hope you guys have a great rest of the day and have a great weekend as well. For the Canadians, I think it's a long weekend for the Canadians, and then 2 weeks we have. I think it's Memorial Day so we have a holiday, and I think 2 weeks for the US. So it's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys all on Monday. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the weekend. Peace.